Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being. Welcome to the 140th episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast. And I really hope you enjoyed last month's theme, all about music and mental health. So this month, as it's Mental Health Awareness Week, and this year's theme is loneliness, we're going to be focusing on supporting mental health of various groups and combating loneliness. And I'd really love to hear from you as listeners. And to make this super easy, I've created a place online where you can leave me an anonymous voice note or with your name called SpeakPipe. You choose. The link is in the show notes. And I'll just let you know now, it is bit.ly/SPKPDMP. So please do feel free to do that. Now, this week is Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week, which runs from the 2nd to the 8th of May. And Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week is a week-long campaign dedicated to talking about mental health problems during and after pregnancy. And it's all about raising public and professional awareness of perinatal mental health problems, advocating for women affected by any mental ill health as a result of pregnancy, changing attitudes, and helping families access the information, care, and support they need to recover. And I've included the link to the Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week link in the show notes because they've got different events going on in the week. This week is organised and led by the Perinatal Mental Health Partnership UK, so that's PMHP UK, who launched the first ever UK Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week in 2014. It's a small group of individuals, including women with lived experience, who came together to raise awareness of maternal mental health. The overall theme of this year's Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week is the power of connection. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about what we can do in the workplace, but also as friends and colleagues and as family members to support anyone who may be experiencing mental ill health due to pregnancy. And around 20% of women experience perinatal mental illness, and this is a survey carried out by PMHP, and it shows that many feel very unable to seek treatment due to this perceived stigma. And given the fact that we will know someone who's been pregnant or work with someone who is pregnant, being able to support them, spotting the signs and having the conversations is vital. And you can also get involved in social media by using the hashtag #MaternalMHMatters. Now, we also have to consider culture, of course. So certain cultures, it will be easier to speak about mental illness related to pregnancy, postnatal, and in other cultures, it will be more difficult. I remember being in a training session once and someone from one of the countries in South America saying that they didn't understand postnatal depression. How could you be depressed when you have a baby? And that's no judgment on that person, but it is interesting how different cultures will perceive this. And really, it's only very recently that we've started talking about maternal mental health in this way. I don't know if anyone remembers when Brooke Shields, the American actor, came out and talked about her experience of postnatal depression. Tom Cruise then came back at her and said, oh, she needed to take vitamins and it would have been better. So it happens across all cultures. And this is something that needs to be addressed. And of course, the language and the way it's addressed in different cultures also has to be considered in this framework. And with more parents choosing to stay in full-time employment and also deciding that they want to be parents, and that could be biologically, that could be through adoption, important that the issue of the role that employers can play in supporting maternal mental health in the workplace is one that is coming much more to the forefront. And actually, it always should have been. I think often when we talk about mental ill health in the workplace, we relate it to stress. But of course, that stress could be internal, it could be external. And even when positive things happen in our lives, it can still cause a lot of stress and it can change someone's perception. So after giving birth to a child, many mothers experience or can experience a period of mental ill health known as postnatal depression. These symptoms, much like depression, can include low moods, withdrawal, feeling isolated, not wanting to bond or connect with your child or not feeling able to do that. It can also result in increased anxiety because, of course, you have a living being that you have to look after and take care of. Mothers or people can also experience postnatal postnatal mania and act out of character and do things that are out of behavior and really not like them. Now, of course, it's not for us if we are not medical or mental health professionals to diagnose, but it is important that we're aware that this can happen, that we keep in touch with people, and that we're there to listen and support them and encourage them to seek professional help. Postnatal depression can also affect the non-birthing partner or the father returning to work from paternity leave. And the charity Family Lives actually reported that 1 in 14 men experience postnatal depression as well. Now, it's likely to be different to birthing female postnatal depression because the hormones and the things and the body and the chemical changes in your body when you have a baby, of course, are different when men don't go through that experience. But of course, there will be changes in life and readjusting to different relationships. Now, this, of course, doesn't affect everyone, but it is important to know that it can affect people and have to be aware of that. And of course, having a family and giving someone a life is a life-changing event and can have lasting effects for parents emotionally and physically. So when the time comes for them to return to work, so the way in which they choose to keep in touch and want to be supported and how that's managed by an employer can really be the difference in retaining or losing a key staff member. And please, if you want to know more about the ways in which people have a family and policies, do check out episode 135, Different Ways to Have a Family, with Jenny Saft, the CEO of Aviavo. And I really hope you're enjoying the content of this podcast and you want to keep up to date. If so, please join my bi-monthly newsletter. The link is in the show notes, but in case you have a paper and pen to hand, it is bit.ly/DMSYNR. And maybe this is your first show or you're a regular listener. So if you enjoy this episode, please, why not leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast from, and can leave a review. Okay, so for some, returning to work as a parent can be highly stressful once, they've had one child or a second child, third child, and it can be incredibly emotionally draining. And I'm a non-parent, but for my friends and people I know that have had children, you can have the first child could be really straightforward, maybe the second child, not so much. Everyone's experiences are going to be different. So employers need to be aware of the potential strain and how the returning parent, in particular, we're focusing on the mother, wants to manage her mental well-being and her parenting and also her role. So the first tip I have in terms of the employer side of it is to stay in touch. So when a member of your team is going on maternity leave, the preparations, it's really important that you schedule those keeping in touch or kit days as they're called before they leave. Now, of course, this might change. No one knows what their birth is going to be like. No one knows how their child's going to sleep or not sleep, but reassure them that these appointments are there, they're informal, they're in place, just to see if there's anything they want to touch base on, if they want to be kept in the loop, because it can be incredibly isolating. So using these meetings to update them on changes to the workplace, what's been happening, and just to say, we're thinking of you and we haven't forgotten about you. So this still will help them to feel like a valued member of the team. The second thing is around flexible working. So thankfully, because of the pandemic, there is so much more of this now, but it's really common, not for everyone, but for returning parents and mothers to think about their work patterns. And I say mothers because even in the UK, women are still primary carers. So I'm not excluding the non-birthing partner or the father, but just being aware of that. So childcare requirements, medical appointments, etc. It's really key that we have that flexibility, thinking about home working, agile working with their working hours, because we know if people can do this and the stress is taken off them, you will see much happier and positive staff members. Number 3 is around training for all staff. So this should be proactive and not reactive, but also remembering that training is not a total panacea. So do check out episode 65, where I talk about why training is not a panacea, for more information on this. But what I will say is that early intervention in supporting employees is key, and to help everyone spot the sign and destigmatize the signs of any kind of maternal mental ill health. So educating and training your line managers, team members, making sure that your employee assistance program is up to date, any intranet information is all up to date. This is going to be vital in supporting people and being really proactive and not reactive in terms of supporting people, and making it part of the whole package around how we support mental health and mental ill health. And then the fourth thing is about workplace culture. So the most effective way to support maternal mental health at work is to cultivate a culture that views shared parental leave, maternity and paternity leave as par for the course. We know that it's part of people's life journey, and research conducted by Dublin City University Business School found that organisations that view maternity maternity leave as a major disruption are far less likely to retain high-performing employees. And also think about your reputation. Think about what's going to happen on Glassdoor. It's not a good idea. In fact, you're making your life much harder if you do that. And I have heard managers say, both female and male, oh, she's pregnant again, she's going on maternity leave. All right, you might feel it's a disruption, but it's not something that you can't work around. And it's not something that we should be saying. These laws have been hard fought and won. We should all be really grateful for them. Okay, so what about outside of the workplace then, as a friend or family member? What I've done is I've actually summarized Mind, the charity's excellent guide here, and I've included a link in the show notes too. So these are the suggestions to how we can support someone who may be experiencing postnatal depression or any kind of postnatal or perinatal mental illness. Really obvious one, it's offer to spend some casual time with them. So just having company, maybe you're not doing anything special, but just being with someone makes them feel much less isolated. And if we're thinking about combating loneliness and creating community, that's a really key one. Much like we talked with keeping in touch days at work, it's keeping in touch with the person who's pregnant or just had a baby. They might be struggling, and it can be really difficult to talk. And maybe they don't respond to the message. That's okay. But just saying, I'm thinking of you. How are you doing? Anytime you want to talk, I'm here to listen. Also suggesting activities that you can do together, maybe some things that you used to do. I know for many people, becoming a parent can make them feel like, oh, I'm losing touch with my previous identity or who I thought I used to be. It could just be going for a coffee or walk around the park. It doesn't have to be big things, but something that you did together. It might also be that you go to parent-child groups with them or do child activities together. And if someone's feeling nervous or unsure, or they think I'm going to be judged, I'm not a good enough parent, that can be very reassuring as well. I think one of the things is as well that's very obvious is to be patient. So often people don't want to talk. They don't want to admit they're struggling. They think this should be the best time in my life. Why am I not happy? Why am I not feeling like I see other parents or mothers looking? And it's just to be patient with them and just to say, you know what, there's no judgment. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen. So really give them that space to do that. And it might be, as I mentioned earlier, they can't respond to messages, and to just say, whenever you're ready to respond, I'd love to hear from you. Sending them a picture message, making sure they know that they don't have to respond. Also, in learning more about perinatal and postnatal mental health. So you might be concerned and think, like me, I'm not a parent. What do I say? What do I know? It just might be useful to have a look at some of the links I've included or your own research. Or I know there'll be, Candice Brathwaite, who talks a lot about this, and she went through a horrendous time. And in particular, she talks about her experience as a mother, as a Black mother, and that's really useful. And someone who is talking about their lived experience can help us understand what someone might be going through. Listen to them. So if you want to know more about that, do check out episode 97, The Art of Listening to Support Someone, where I talk about a framework for listening, deep listening. So try and focus on them. We can be very tempted to give advice. Now, what worked for you might not work for this person. So unless you've experienced being a new parent, it might not be that helpful to compare things. I think listening can be much more powerful and a reassurance. And if someone doesn't want to talk, don't push. It's, like I said, it's very challenging. So just offering that listening space is really useful. And then you might think, how good is listening? So do check out episode 97 if you feel that way, but we can offer practical support. So maybe if they're feeling really low and they've barely got the energy to get out of bed, or potentially they're doing too much and they just need to take a break, we could say, oh, I'm just going to pop round. I'm really happy to help you. Have you got any washing up you need me to do? Any laundry? Oh, I've just made some extra food. Shall I bring a Tupperware round? If you like babies and you like children, offering to look after them, or even if they take a nap upstairs, you can be with a baby just looking after them and watching them so they can have that time for themselves. I know I had a friend that they had twins. They couldn't even shower, so someone looked after the twins while they went to have a shower. And if they're really struggling, or they feel really daunted, or they feel they're going to be judged, just offering them solutions about getting help. You can offer to help them arrange a doctor's appointment, sit with them while they phone the GP. Maybe they want you to go with them to their appointments, or they want you to babysit if they've got not just the baby that's recently been born, but other children. Or sit with them and help them research different options for support. What does support look like? And of course, that's going to be different for different people. For some people, going for counselling will be really scary. And maybe other people want to go to just a group where they can talk about this, or go and do a dance group, whatever it is that's going to help someone. And Mind also has pages on support and services and useful contacts for more information. So maternal mental health is something we all need to be aware of and talking about as parents and non-parents. 20% of women are likely to experience some form of mental ill health as a result of giving birth. There are also, of course, going to be cultural differences and discrepancies within that, and how people are more or less likely to talk about things, but also the language they might use depending on cultural background and how they engage in talking about maternal mental health. Workplaces absolutely need to be aware that this is the case, that many people experience mental ill health as a result and take a proactive, not reactive approach. Making sure your team and staff members don't feel bad for taking their entitled rights. So you don't want to lose these key staff members. So reminding people that this is their right and keeping in touch with them. Training to spot the signs and how to have a positive conversation. As individuals, there's a lot we can do in terms of practical support, listening and non-judgment as non-medical professionals. Being patient and listening are key, and practical support is really invaluable, and we can help someone to find the appropriate support or help them research or let them know that what they're experiencing is really common and there's support available. So that is this week's podcast complete, but are there other topics you'd like me to talk about? I'd really love to hear from you. So please remember, you can leave me an anonymous message on my SpeakPipe, and the link is in the show notes. So that's bit.ly/SPKPDMP. And also, why not leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast from if you enjoyed the show. And the resources for this week's episode are Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week, episode 135, Recognizing Different Ways to Have, episode 65, Why Training Isn't a Panacea, episode 97, The Art of Listening to Support Someone, and Mind's Guide on Postnatal Depression and Perinatal Mental Health for Friends and Family. So until the next episode, everyone, take care, and I'll be speaking about loneliness and mental health.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.